Cowboy accepted an Apache slave, but she turned out to be the chief's hidden daughter. The morning sun rose slowly over the dry plains, painting the sky with soft shades of orange and gold. Daniel stood outside his small ranch house, leaning against the wooden fence as he watched the land wake up around him. His life was simple, shaped by hard work, quiet routines, and long days under the open sky. He was known in the nearby frontier town as a fair man who kept to himself. He spoke little, but when he did, people listened, because they knew he chose his words carefully. The ranch sat far from the busy parts of town, surrounded by wide fields and low hills. The wind carried the smell of dust and grass, and the sound of horses moving slowly in their corral filled the air. Daniel preferred this peaceful life. He had seen enough trouble in the past and had chosen a path that avoided conflict whenever possible. That morning felt like any other at first. He checked the fences, fed the horses, and prepared for a long day of work. But by midday, the quiet rhythm of his life was interrupted when a group of traders rode into town. News traveled quickly across the frontier, and by the time Daniel arrived near the main street to collect supplies, people were already gathering to see what the traders had brought. The traders looked tired and dusty, their wagons heavy with goods. Among the cargo were several individuals who had been rescued during a conflict between rival groups near Apache territory. The town watched with curiosity mixed with unease. Some people whispered, others kept their distance. Frontier life had taught them to be cautious, especially when strangers arrived carrying unknown stories. Daniel noticed her immediately. She stood slightly apart from the others, her posture straight despite clear exhaustion. Her dark hair moved gently with the wind, and her eyes remained calm but distant.
She said nothing, not even when people stared at her. There was a quiet strength about her that made Daniel pause.
But while others saw only someone who needed help, he sensed something deeper, a dignity that refused to be broken. The traders explained that they could not keep the rescued individuals with them for long. They needed temporary homes or work until arrangements could be made. Some townspeople stepped forward quickly, but others hesitated, unsure of what responsibilities might come with accepting someone connected to tribal lands. Daniel listened quietly. He did not rush into decisions. Yet he found himself watching the silent woman again and again. She did not plead or try to gain sympathy. She simply stood there, observing everything with careful attention. When one trader mentioned that she had barely spoken since being rescued, many people turned away. The silence made them uncomfortable, but to Daniel, it felt different. Now. He recognized the look of someone who had learned to survive by watching first and speaking later. Without fully understanding why, he stepped forward. He told the traders he could offer her work and a safe place to stay at his ranch. He made it clear that he expected nothing beyond honest effort. The town reacted with mixed emotions. Some admired his kindness, while others warned him quietly that bringing someone from Apache lands could create trouble. Daniel accepted their concerns without argument. He had made his decision. The journey back to the ranch was quiet. The woman rode beside him, maintaining a respectful distance. The only sounds were the horses' hooves and the wind moving through the grass. After some time, Daniel introduced himself in a calm voice. She listened, but did not respond. He did not push her to speak. He understood that trust could not be forced. When they reached the ranch, he showed her the small guest room near the barn and explained the basic routines. She nodded slightly, acknowledging his words without hesitation. That evening, they shared a simple meal at the wooden table. She ate slowly, carefully, as if measuring every action.
Daniel sensed that she was studying him just as much as he observed her.
Days passed, and a pattern began to form. She woke early, helping with chores without being asked. She learned quickly, watching how Daniel worked with the animals and copying his movements with surprising skill. When a young horse became restless, she approached it with calm confidence, speaking softly in her own language. The horse relaxed under her touch, and Daniel realized she possessed deep knowledge of animals. Though she still spoke very little, her actions communicated clearly. Bear. She repaired tools, cleaned the stable, and helped manage the herd with natural ability. Daniel began to see that she was not simply learning from him. She had experience that ran deeper than he first assumed. The town continued to whisper about her. During supply visits, Daniel noticed curious glances and quiet conversations. Some people asked cautious questions, while others expressed concern about possible conflict with nearby tribes. Daniel answered politely but avoided sharing details. He believed everyone deserved the chance to reveal their story in their own time.
One evening, a strong storm rolled across the plains.
The wind shook the barn doors and rain fell heavily against the roof. Daniel worked quickly to secure the animals, and she joined him without hesitation. Together they moved through the storm, their coordination natural despite the lack of spoken communication. When the work was finished, they stood under the shelter watching the rain fall. For the first time, she spoke a single word, a quiet thank you. Her voice carried both strength and hesitation, as if speaking required great effort. From that moment, small changes began. She started using short phrases, answering simple questions, though she avoided talking about her past.
Daniel respected her boundaries.
He understood that everyone carried memories that required time before being shared. Weeks passed, and the ranch felt different. The silence between them became comfortable rather than uncertain. They shared meals, worked side by side, and slowly built a sense of partnership based on mutual respect. One afternoon, while riding across the outer fields, Daniel noticed her scanning the distant hills carefully. Her posture changed, alert and focused. When he asked if something was wrong, she shook her head, but continued watching the horizon. It was clear she expected something, or someone. Later that evening, as the sun set and the sky turned deep red, Daniel felt a quiet tension in the air. The peaceful routine of the ranch now carried a subtle sense of anticipation. He realized that the woman's story was far from finished, and whatever past she carried would eventually arrive at their doorstep. As darkness settled over the land, she stood outside, looking toward the distant plains, her expression calm but determined. Daniel watched from a distance, understanding that their lives were slowly moving toward a moment that would change everything. Life on the ranch slowly settled into a steady rhythm, and the quiet understanding between Daniel and the young woman continued to grow. The early mornings began with soft light spreading across the fields, and both of them moved through their tasks with natural coordination.
She no longer seemed like a stranger who had just arrived.
Instead, she moved around the ranch with confidence, as if she had always belonged there. Daniel noticed how quickly she learned every detail of ranch life. Bed. She watched closely before attempting anything new, but once she understood a task, she performed it with precision. Whether it was repairing fences, guiding the horses, or managing supplies, she showed skill beyond what he expected. Her calm presence made even difficult days feel manageable. One morning, as they worked near the barn, she spoke more than usual. She introduced herself properly, saying her name was Ayanna. Her voice was soft but steady. Daniel nodded with a small smile, repeating her name respectfully. It felt like an important moment, not dramatic, but meaningful. For the first time, he felt that she had chosen to open a small door into her world. Even though she spoke more now, she still avoided talking about her past. Daniel did not pressure her. He understood that trust took time and that silence sometimes held stories too heavy to share quickly. Instead, he focused on building a space where she felt safe enough to speak when she was ready. As days turned into weeks, their work together strengthened their connection. They rode across the fields checking livestock, shared quiet meals in the evening, and sometimes sat outside watching the stars without needing to fill the silence with conversation. Ayanna seemed more relaxed, though there was always a hint of watchfulness in her eyes. The town remained uncertain about her presence. When Daniel visited to buy supplies, some people greeted him warmly, but others asked careful questions about the woman staying at his ranch. A few warned him that allowing someone from Apache lands into his life could cause problems. Daniel listened respectfully, but made it clear that she had earned her place through honesty and hard work. One afternoon, a local rancher named Thomas approached Daniel with concern. Thomas was known for speaking his mind, and he believed he was offering friendly advice. He told Daniel that trusting someone whose past was unknown could bring unexpected risks. Daniel thanked him for his concern, but calmly explained that he judged people by their actions, not rumors. The conversation ended politely, but Daniel could sense that some tension remained within the community. Meanwhile, Ayanna continued to prove her value on the ranch. She showed remarkable skill with horses, especially those that were nervous or difficult to manage. One young stallion had refused to accept any rider, but she approached it with patience and gentle confidence. She spent hours simply standing near the animal, allowing it to grow used to her presence. But eventually the horse accepted her touch, and Daniel watched with quiet admiration. Her knowledge of the land also surprised him. But she could read subtle signs in the environment, the movement of birds, the direction of the wind, and changes in animal behavior, predicting weather shifts before they arrived. These skills made their work more efficient and strengthened Daniel's respect for her abilities. Despite these positive changes, there were moments when Ayanna seemed distant. Sometimes she would pause during work and look toward the horizon, her expression thoughtful. Daniel sensed that she was waiting for something, though she never explained what. One evening, as they returned from checking the outer fields, a sudden commotion broke the calm of the town nearby.
A group of cattle had broken through a fence and were moving dangerously toward the main road. Panic spread among the townspeople as they tried to stop the herd.
Daniel and Ayanna rode quickly toward the chaos, knowing that uncontrolled animals could cause serious damage. As they approached, Daniel noticed how quickly Ayanna assessed the situation.
Instead of rushing blindly, she studied the movement of the herd and chose a strategic path to guide them away from danger. She communicated with calm gestures and clear instructions, helping others coordinate their efforts.
Her leadership surprised many who had doubted her before. Together, they managed to turn the herd toward open fields where they could be safely contained. The tension faded slowly, replaced by relief and admiration. Several townspeople thanked Daniel and Ayanna, acknowledging her bravery and quick thinking. For the first time, some of the suspicious looks softened into genuine respect. That night, as they sat outside the ranch house, Daniel thanked her for her help. Ayanna responded with a small smile, saying that teamwork made difficult tasks easier. It was one of the longest conversations they had shared so far. Though she still avoided discussing her past, she seemed more comfortable speaking about the present. Days later, a quiet moment changed everything slightly. While repairing a fence together, Ayanna asked Daniel why he had chosen to help her when others hesitated. Daniel paused before answering honestly. He told her that he believed everyone deserved a chance to rebuild their life, and that he trusted his instincts when he sensed kindness in someone. She listened carefully, her expression thoughtful. After a moment, she said that not many people had shown her that kind of trust before. The words carried weight, hinting at experiences she had not yet revealed. Their bond continued to grow through shared challenges. They faced harsh weather, long days of work, and occasional misunderstandings, but each obstacle strengthened their understanding of one another. Daniel began to realize that her presence had changed his life in ways he had not expected. The ranch felt less lonely, and the future seemed more open than before. Best. Yet beneath the calm surface, signs of change were beginning to appear. One morning, Daniel noticed unfamiliar tracks near the outer fields, horse tracks that did not belong to anyone from the town. Bekebe. The discovery created a quiet tension in his mind. He mentioned it casually to Ayanna, watching her reaction. She grew still for a moment, before nodding slowly, as if confirming something she had already sensed. She did not appear frightened. Instead, her posture became more alert, her movements slightly more cautious. Daniel realized that whatever she had been watching for might finally be approaching.
As the sun set that evening, the sky turned deep purple, and a cool breeze moved across the land.
Ayanna stood outside near the fence, looking toward the distant hills once again. Daniel joined her quietly, both of them sharing the silence. In that moment, he understood that their peaceful life might soon face a turning point. The past she had kept hidden was drawing closer, and neither of them could stop what was coming. But instead of fear, Daniel felt a sense of readiness. Whatever the future brought, they would face it together, strengthened by the trust they had built day by day. The morning air felt different, heavier than usual, as if the land itself was waiting for something to happen. Daniel woke early, sensing a quiet tension he could not fully explain. The sky stretched wide and clear above the plains, but the peaceful beauty of the sunrise did not ease the feeling growing in his chest. Outside, the horses were restless, moving more than usual, their ears turning toward the distant hills. Ayanna was already awake, standing near the fence and watching the horizon. Her posture was calm but alert, and Daniel noticed how still she remained, as if listening to something beyond ordinary sound. When he approached, she glanced at him briefly before returning her gaze to the distance. "Someone is coming," she said quietly. Her words were simple, but they carried certainty. Daniel followed her gaze, though at first he saw nothing but open land. The wind moved gently through the grass, and for a moment, everything seemed normal. Then, far away, faint shapes began to appear, riders moving slowly across the plains. Frontier life had taught him to prepare for the unknown. He moved toward the barn, checking supplies and making sure the ranch was secure. Ayanna remained calm, showing no sign of panic. Instead, there was something else in her expression. Recognition. Fast. As the riders came closer, Daniel could see that they were Apache warriors. Their movements were disciplined, their presence commanding respect. The sight caused a mixture of concern and curiosity within him. He knew the history between settlers and tribal groups was complicated, shaped by misunderstandings and old wounds. He did not know why they had come, but he trusted Ayanna's calm reaction. The riders stopped at a respectful distance from the ranch house. Dust settled around them as they waited. One man at the front stepped forward slowly, his posture strong and dignified. Daniel noticed the way he scanned the surroundings, not with aggression, but with careful attention. Ayanna stepped forward before Daniel could speak. She walked toward the group with steady confidence. Daniel hesitated, unsure whether to follow immediately, but he stayed close enough to support her if needed. When she reached the riders, something unexpected happened. One of the warriors dismounted quickly and lowered his head slightly, showing deep respect. The gesture surprised Daniel. He realized that they recognized her, and not just as an ordinary member of their people. Voices spoke in a language Daniel did not fully understand, but the tone carried emotion. Ayanna responded calmly, her voice stronger than he had ever heard before. She was no longer the quiet woman who had arrived silently at his ranch. She stood tall, speaking with authority. Breath. After several moments, she turned back toward Daniel. Her expression was serious but not fearful. "They are my people," she said. "They have come from me."
Daniel felt a mixture of relief and uncertainty.
Bet. He had known this moment would come, but now that it had arrived, he realized how much her presence had changed his life. He nodded slowly, allowing her to continue. Beh. One of the riders approached Daniel and spoke in careful English. He explained that Ayana was not an ordinary member of their tribe. She was the hidden daughter of a powerful Apache chief. For years, her identity had been kept secret to protect her from enemies who might use her to gain power. Daniel listened quietly, trying to absorb the revelation. It explained many things: her leadership skills, her knowledge of the land, and the respect shown by the warriors. He felt a sudden understanding of the weight she had been carrying in silence. The rider continued, explaining that during a recent conflict between groups, Ayana had been separated from her people. The traders who found her had misunderstood her situation, believing she needed protection. Her silence had been a choice, a way to avoid drawing attention to her identity until she understood what she truly was. Daniel glanced at Ayana, realizing that she had trusted him enough to stay even when she could have revealed the truth earlier. He felt honored by that trust. As more words were exchanged, the tension between worlds became clear. The Apache warriors expressed gratitude toward Daniel for offering her safety and dignity. Best. They made it clear that they did not come with hostility, but with respect. Still, Daniel sensed that the situation was delicate. Desperation. The nearby town had a history of fear toward tribal groups, and the arrival of Apache riders could easily create misunderstanding. Ayana stepped closer to Daniel and spoke softly. Bet. She explained that her father, the chief, had been searching for her across many lands. The riders had followed clues for weeks before finding her here. She admitted that she had known this moment would eventually come, which was why she often watched the horizon. Daniel nodded, though he felt a quiet sadness forming beneath his calm exterior. He realized that her journey might soon lead her away from the ranch. Despite understanding that she belonged to a larger world, he could not ignore the connection they had built. The riders requested permission to rest near the ranch for the evening, and Daniel agreed. He believed that respect and kindness were the best ways to build understanding. As the sun lowered in the sky, they shared food and stories. Even without fully understanding the language, Daniel felt the deep bond between Ayana and her people. Later that night, Ayana sat with him outside the ranch house. The stars stretched across the sky, and the air felt heavy with unspoken thoughts. Pass. She explained more about her past than ever before. She told him that her father had hidden her identity to protect her from rivals who might seek power through her. She had grown up learning leadership, responsibility, and the importance of balance between strength and compassion. Daniel listened carefully, realizing that the quiet woman he had met was also someone carrying the expectations of an entire people. He admired her courage in facing such responsibility without losing her kindness. "I did not tell you before because I needed to know who I could trust," she said gently. Daniel nodded, understanding completely. Trust was not something given lightly, especially for someone in her position. The next morning brought new challenges. News of the Apache riders spread quickly through the town, creating anxiety among some residents. Daniel knew that misunderstandings could easily lead to conflict if people acted out of fear instead of understanding.
Ayana recognized this as well.
She spoke with the riders, urging patience and calm.
Her leadership was clear, and Daniel saw how naturally others listened to her. As the day continued, Daniel realized that everything had changed. The ranch was no longer just a quiet place far from the world. It had become a meeting point between two different cultures, each carrying its own history and fears. Despite the uncertainty ahead, Daniel felt a deep sense of pride in Ayana. She had grown from a silent stranger into a confident leader before his eyes. He knew that whatever choices she made next would shape not only her future but also the future of those around her. As the sun set once again, the plains seemed to hold their breath, waiting for what would come next. The truth about Ayana had been revealed, and with it came new possibilities and new challenges that neither of them could avoid. The days following the arrival of the Apache riders felt heavy with change. The peaceful rhythm of the ranch was replaced by quiet tension that lingered in the air like an approaching storm. Daniel noticed how even the animals seemed more alert, as if sensing that something important was unfolding. The Apache riders remained respectful guests, keeping their distance from the main house while setting up a small camp near the edge of the property. They moved with discipline and calm, avoiding any action that might cause fear. Still, word spread quickly through the nearby town, and reactions were mixed. Some people were curious, others cautious, and a few deeply worried. Daniel rode into town one morning to gather supplies, and quickly realized how much attention the situation had drawn. Conversation stopped when he entered the general store. Some people greeted him kindly, but others watched with suspicion. A few asked direct questions about why Apache warriors were near his land. Daniel answered calmly, explaining that they had come peacefully and that there was no reason for fear. Despite his efforts, he could feel the unease growing. Frontier life was shaped by stories passed from one generation to another, and many people carried old fears that were not easily changed. Daniel understood that misunderstandings could grow quickly if no one acted carefully. Back at the ranch, Ayana faced her own inner conflict.
Reuniting with her people brought comfort, but it also forced her to confront decisions she had tried to delay. Her father, the chief, had not yet arrived, but messages from him made his expectations clear.
He wanted her to return fully to tribal life and embrace her role as a leader among her people. Ayana respected her father deeply, yet she felt changed by her time at the ranch. She had learned new ways of seeing the world, new forms of trust and cooperation that did not erase her heritage but expanded it. She often walked alone near the fields, thinking quietly as she tried to understand her own path. Daniel watched these moments from a distance. He sensed her struggle but did not push her for answers. Instead, he focused on keeping the ranch running smoothly and creating an atmosphere of calm for everyone present. One afternoon, a misunderstanding nearly turned into serious conflict. A group of local ranchers rode toward Daniel's land, clearly tense and uncertain about the Apache presence.
They claimed they were only coming to observe, but their nervous energy made the situation fragile.
The Apache riders also noticed their arrival and stood alert, ready to defend themselves if necessary. The air felt tight with unspoken tension. Daniel quickly rode between both groups, raising his hand in a gesture of peace. He spoke calmly, encouraging everyone to lower their guard. Ayana stepped forward beside him, her presence steady and confident. She addressed both sides with quiet authority. Though she spoke first in her own language to the Apache riders, she then turned to the ranchers and explained the situation clearly. Her voice carried strength without anger, and her words focused on understanding rather than blame. Slowly, the tension eased. The ranchers realized that the Apache riders were not seeking conflict, and the warriors saw that the settlers were acting from uncertainty rather than hostility. What could have become a dangerous moment instead turned into a conversation. It was not perfect, but it was a beginning. Afterward, Daniel felt proud of how Ayana had handled the situation. She had stepped naturally into a leadership role, guiding both groups toward calm without forcing anyone to lose dignity. It was in that moment that Daniel fully understood the depth of her strength. Later that evening, they sat together near the barn, watching the sun disappear behind the hills. But Daniel admitted that he had worried the situation might turn difficult, but he believed she had prevented something much worse. Ayana listened quietly before responding that understanding both worlds gave her a responsibility she could not ignore. Passed. As days passed, the arrival of her father finally drew near. The chief arrived with a smaller group, his presence commanding respect without needing to raise his voice. He carried himself with quiet confidence, and when he saw Ayana, his expression softened with pride. Their reunion was emotional but calm. Daniel stepped back respectfully, allowing them space. He noticed how the chief observed everything carefully, including the ranch and the way Ayana interacted with him. After speaking privately with his daughter, the chief approached Daniel to thank him for protecting her. Their conversation was brief but meaningful. The chief acknowledged that Daniel had treated Ayana with dignity rather than control, which earned his respect. Daniel responded simply, saying that she had earned her place through her actions. As negotiations between the tribe and local settlers began, Ayana found herself acting as a bridge between cultures. She helped translate not just language but also intention, explaining the concerns and hopes of each side. It was exhausting work, requiring patience and emotional strength. At times, she felt pulled in opposite directions. Her father spoke of tradition and responsibility, reminding her of her role within the tribe. Bass. Meanwhile, the ranch represented independence and a life shaped by choice rather than expectation. Daniel sensed her struggle but avoided influencing her decision. He believed that true support meant allowing her to choose her own path. One night she admitted her fears to him. Brace. She worried that no matter what she chose, she might disappoint someone she cared about. Daniel listened quietly before telling her that true leadership often meant creating a new path rather than choosing between two old ones. Desperation. His words stayed with her. The next day brought another moment of tension, when rumors spread that some settlers planned to push the Apache riders away. Ayana acted quickly, arranging a meeting where both sides could speak openly. She stood between them, calm and steady, encouraging honesty without allowing anger to take control. Through patience and clear communication, she helped both groups understand that cooperation could benefit everyone. The conversation lasted for hours, but by the end, the mood had shifted. While not all fears disappeared, respect began to grow. Daniel watched from the side, realizing that Ayana had become more than the quiet woman he first met. She was now a leader shaping the future of both communities. As the sun set that evening, she stood alone near the edge of the fields, looking toward the distant horizon once again. This time, her expression held determination rather than uncertainty. She understood that her journey was reaching a turning point. Daniel approached quietly, and for a moment they said nothing. The silence between them felt full of meaning. Both knew that the choices ahead would change their lives, but neither felt fear. Instead, there was a shared sense that something new was being created, a path that honored the past while opening space for a different future. The world around them felt larger than before, and as the stars appeared one by one, Ayana realized that she no longer had to choose between two worlds. She could become the connection that allowed both to grow stronger together. The final days of uncertainty began quietly, without sudden drama, but everyone felt that something important was approaching. The ranch no longer felt like a simple place far from the world. It had become a meeting ground where different lives, traditions, and hopes crossed paths. Daniel noticed how even the smallest moments carried deeper meaning now. Shared meals, conversations by the fire, and long rides across the open fields all felt like steps toward a decision that could change everything.
Ayana spent many hours in thought.
She walked through the fields at sunrise, watching the light spread across the plains, and sat near the hills at sunset, listening to the wind move through the grass. Bay, she spoke often with her father, the chief, discussing the future of her people and the possibilities that lay ahead. Their conversations were serious but respectful. He wanted her to return fully to tribal life, believing her leadership was needed there. Yet he also saw the strength she had gained through her experiences beyond their lands. Daniel gave her space, though it was not easy for him. He had grown used to her presence. The quiet conversations, the shared work, and the understanding that existed even when they said nothing. He knew that whatever choice she made must come from her own heart. Still, he could not ignore the feeling that life might soon change in ways he could not control. The town continued to adjust to the presence of the Apache group. Some settlers began to see them differently, especially after Ayanna helped resolve several small conflicts with patience and fairness. She listened carefully to concerns from both sides, never dismissing anyone's fears. But, over time, trust slowly began to replace suspicion.
One afternoon, a gathering was arranged near the ranch so that leaders from both communities could speak openly.
People arrived cautiously at first, unsure of what to expect. Daniel stood quietly at the edge, observing as Ayanna stepped forward to guide the discussion.
She spoke about the importance of understanding and cooperation. She explained that the land held space for everyone and that working together could create opportunities for trade, shared resources, and peaceful coexistence.
Her words were simple but powerful because they came from genuine experience. She had lived among both groups and understood their struggles. The chief watched her carefully, his expression thoughtful. He saw not only his daughter but a leader shaped by unique challenges. Batos.
Daniel noticed the pride in the chief's eyes, mixed with acceptance that her path might be different from what he had once imagined. As the meeting continued, practical ideas began to form.
Ranchers discussed exchanging goods with the tribe, while tribal members offered knowledge of the land and seasonal changes that could help the settlers. It was not a perfect agreement, but it marked the beginning of something new, a partnership built on respect rather than fear. That evening, after the gathering ended, Ayanna walked with Daniel along the fence line. The sky glowed softly with fading light, and the air felt calm. She told him that she had finally reached a decision. She would not abandon her people, but she would also not leave behind the lessons she had learned at the ranch. Instead of choosing one world over another, she wanted to build a connection between them. She believed she could travel between both communities, helping them understand each other and grow stronger together. Daniel listened quietly, feeling both relief and sadness. He had prepared himself for the possibility that she might leave forever, and hearing that she would remain connected to the ranch filled him with gratitude. At the same time, he understood that her life would now carry greater responsibility.
I learned here that trust can grow slowly, she said gently.
And I want to protect that. Daniel nodded, understanding the meaning behind her words. He told her that the ranch would always be a place where she was welcome, no matter where her path led.
In the following days, preparations began for her new role. She worked closely with her father and the settlers to create clear agreements that respected everyone's needs.
Her ability to listen without judgment made people feel heard, and her calm strength helped guide difficult conversations toward peaceful outcomes.
A chief eventually announced that he supported her decision.
He recognized that her experiences had given her a rare perspective, one that could help both communities move forward together. His acceptance lifted a weight from her shoulders, allowing her to fully embrace her chosen path. Life on the ranch gradually returned to a sense of balance, though it was different from before. Apache visitors arrived more frequently, not as strangers, but as allies. Trade began to grow, bringing new energy to the region. The town changed slowly, learning that cooperation created opportunities that fear never could.
Daniel found himself reflecting often on how much his life had changed since the day he first saw her standing silently among the traders.
What had begun as a simple act of kindness had turned into something far greater, a journey that transformed not only their lives but also the future of those around them. One morning, as the sun rose brightly over the plains, Ayana prepared to leave for a journey with her people. She would travel between territories, helping maintain the new partnerships they had built. Before she left, she walked through the ranch one last time, touching the fence posts and watching the horses graze peacefully. Daniel joined her near the gate.
Neither felt the need for long speeches. Their bond had grown beyond words.
They understood each other through shared experiences and quiet trust. She thanked him for believing in her when others had doubts. He replied that she had changed his understanding of strength and leadership. Their conversation felt simple, yet deeply meaningful. As she mounted her horse, the morning light surrounded her like a promise of new beginnings. She turned back once, offering a small smile before guiding her horse forward. Daniel watched as she rode across the plains, no longer a silent stranger but a confident leader moving toward her destiny. Though she traveled away from the ranch, her presence remained part of it. Letters and visits kept their connection alive, and each return felt like the continuation of a story rather than an ending. The ranch itself became a symbol of cooperation, a place where different cultures met not through conflict, but through shared respect. People who once avoided each other now worked side by side, building a future shaped by understanding. As seasons changed, Daniel often stood at the fence during quiet evenings, remembering how everything had begun with a simple decision to help someone in need. He realized that true strength came not from control, but from kindness, patience, and the willingness to see beyond fear. And somewhere across the wide plains, Ayana continued her journey, carrying both worlds within her, proving that identity could grow rather than divide. Their story did not end with separation. It evolved into something stronger, built on trust, respect, and the courage to create a new path where none had existed before.